Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's SCORE Fairfield County's live webinar on Tell Your Story on LinkedIn, Seal Your Brand. I'm Bob Hogan, the webinar coordinator and a business mentor here at SCORE Fairfield County, and I'll be your host today. Our presenter today is Marc Halpert, and more about Marc in just a moment, but first I'd like to give you some brief information on SCORE. SCORE is a national organization with 320 chapters across the country and over 11,000 volunteers. Locally here at SCORE Fairfield County, we have over 130 volunteers with a wide range of industry, process, and subject matter expertise. And we offer three primary value-added services to small business owners. We offer one-on-one counseling, which can either be face-to-face, by phone, email, or Skype. We offer over 150 educational workshops and webinars to our clients and prospects here. And we also offer extensive resources on our website, which includes access to a number of subject matter experts that you can find there. Our next webinar will be 2 weeks from today on May 1st, when Scott Herkus will present how the new tax laws will impact your individual and business taxes. And you can find more specifics on our website at fairfieldcounty.score.org. We've set aside time for Q&A at the end of Marc's presentation today, so if you have a question, please use the chat feature at any time during the presentation, and we will take those at the end of the presentation. It's located in the lower left part of your screen. To respect your time, we will end our webinar sharply at 1 o'clock today, and the session is being recorded, and a link to the recording and the materials will be available on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org, within the next day or two. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker. After a 22-year corporate career, Marc Halpert now owns 3 companies. One of these is Connect to Collaborate, which trains others in LinkedIn, just as he uses it to market his own companies. Marc is a high-energy speaker at national conferences, author of dozens of articles, and is heard on WCBS Radio in New York. He has been named twice to the list of top 200 global LinkedIn coaches, and in 2017, the American Bar Association published his book, LinkedIn Marketing Techniques for Law and Professional Practices. I'll now turn it over to Marc. Marc, it's all yours.
Thanks so much, Bob. I really appreciate it. So today we're going to talk a little bit about LinkedIn. I want to let you know that you're not going to learn everything about LinkedIn. In fact, I'm going to do very little of how to click the mouse and where to do things on LinkedIn. I'm more going to paint the story about how you need to brand yourself as a item, as a service, as a product, as a commodity. Because the more you brand yourself, the more you differentiate yourself from your competition, the more people will take notice of you. But you have to do this not just once, but consistently throughout your career. And if you haven't thought about that, I want you to think about why people are attracted to you and why they might not even know about you yet, and how you can overcome both of those issues. So I'm going to talk about telling your story, because a story is the way humans know, learn, and retain, and how to seal that brand as you go. Back in 2012, a very smart woman named Lois Geller wrote this in Forbes, and I've highlighted the meat of it. If you're going to develop your brand and think of yourself as a brand, the last thing you want to do is follow the beaten path. You want to head down your own road. Your brand has to plant itself in the hearts and minds, especially the hearts of prospects and customers. Not only prospects, but people who've bought from you once and you want to return to you to buy as a recurring customer. So it's hearts and minds. It's mental and it's emotional. It's cerebral and it's the way people perceive you. And I want you to think about this as you go through this presentation with me so that you understand. And the metaphor I like to draw is you are a newspaper on a newsstand, and people are busy. They're rushing by all the time. The average LinkedIn casual reader of your LinkedIn profile has to be grabbed. They have to be emotionally and mentally attracted to what you're saying on your LinkedIn profile, or they pass by you or buy from the competitor newspaper on the newsstand. So you have to, in essence, be absolutely stunning every single time. You have to tell them on the headline, why you? Now, if you know me, if you've ever heard me speak, I'm a big proponent of Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K, who wrote the book called Start With Why. And why is the way that we express ourselves and attract people to our mission, our cause, our unique vision that makes people understand what makes us tick. It is long time, past century practice to talk about what you do and who you are. You have to talk about why. And on LinkedIn, you want other people who are either going to endorse your skills or recommend you to talk about how well you do the why you do what you do. So you want to be that robust, rich, attention-grabbing person that talks about how I can help you, and here's why me. LinkedIn is far more than your resume, and your resume should never be posted on LinkedIn. So if your resume is copy and pasted onto LinkedIn, you've committed the cardinal offense on LinkedIn, and that is you are boring by definition. A resume is backward-looking. LinkedIn is the past makes you who you are today. Who you are today indicates where you're going in your future. And the LinkedIn profile allows you to talk about, as you see on this green chalkboard screen, all the things that develop and deliver the amazing things you bring to the table as your career has developed you. It's like layers on the onion. Your interests, your values, your vision, your goals, your skills. They have no place on your resume. This is where you place them on LinkedIn and how you go beyond the resume. Resumes are fine. They complement your LinkedIn, but your LinkedIn goes beyond your resume to talk about these items that are out on the periphery of this profile, of this graphic. So as I was saying before, your past is rich, no matter where you came from, whether you changed industries, as we were just talking about before the session, whether you've stayed in the same industry, all your profession, all your career, all the skills and all the things you developed as you went along, all the values that you possess right now came from what you learned as you went along. But your past is your past. Your past delivers the skill set and value that you will use today in everything you do. The knee-jerk reactions, the immediate responses that you have are all based upon your past experience. And where you want to go in your future definitely is based upon your past leading to your present. And your present helps you learn your future. Look, I did not go to graduate school to become a LinkedIn coach. In fact, LinkedIn did not even exist when I went to graduate school. So there are so many changes that are coming your way in your career. You must stay ahead of them. You must stay active and relevant, and your future will change, and you'll be amazed at how many ways your future can change based on where you came from. Another way to look at LinkedIn is I want you to be the yellow guy in a sea of blue guys. Make your LinkedIn profile tell why you. How do you stand out from all the different people that are out there? And as all those other people you're competing with are pushing their resume through their LinkedIn profile, by definition, when you go beyond your resume on LinkedIn, you will stand out. The reader will want to read what you're talking about. And I'll give you some ideas about how to do that as we go through the LinkedIn profile. So those of you who have failed to put any sort of background photo or a headshot photo, have an amorphous name, and are showing the name of your title and the name of your company on your LinkedIn profile, this is the best example I've got. I have no idea what this person does. Sandy, male or female? What do Lamb Advisors do? Is she agriculturally bound? What does she do? It just tells me nothing. And I know Sandy, and I use her example. Now I've tipped, she's a female. But she is in a field that has nothing to do with the name of her company. So where am I leading you? I want you to think of your LinkedIn profile as your calling card, as your initial way of making an impact. And you need to make that impact using photos, using graphics, using color, and using video, which we'll get to in a bit. So you see, I've gone from Sandy's profile to a screenshot of my profile. I use that banner at the top to show you me in action, to show what I do. So you make that immediate mental image. This guy must do speaking. This guy must do teaching. Okay. Then I use my headshot, and I use a headline right underneath my name that talks in 120 characters and not a single character more, 120 characters, why I do what I do. Not what is my title, not what is my company name, but why do I do what I do? And we'll get into that a little bit more, but I want to bring you along this process so you understand that you can do so much more with your LinkedIn profile than you probably have. This red box is the snapshot that follows you wherever you go on LinkedIn. So if you comment on somebody's comment, or if you add some comment in a group and somebody mouses over your name, some of this information is going to show up. If they want to know more about you, they will click on it. How do you make them want to know more about you? You have to be more interesting and brand yourself in a certain way, in your own way, so that you look better and different than the competition. So very top level, but nonetheless, in a short shot, a short bite, you can tell somebody why you do what you do. This is me in action. This is my passion. This is what I do. That background photo at the top, that is absolutely essential. If you have that blue Starry Night thing going on that I showed you in Sandy Lamb's profile picture, then you need to go get yourself a background shot that shows something that makes sense about what you're trying to convey. It's like the big picture on the front page of the newspaper or the picture on the box of cereal. No one buys unless they're visually attracted. That banner is really important. All graphics are really important on LinkedIn because they stick with people. The human mind will remember what it has seen in color and preferably has seen in action, and that's where video becomes really important on LinkedIn. When you want to add more than 1,000 words to the picture you've got, everything you can write it beautifully, but you have to reinforce it with pictures. That's where people remember you. That's when they come up to me and say, I saw you in that video. That was a really interesting video. And that's the only thing they remember about me after some conversation. That means the video is doing what I want it to do. You need a great headshot. So if you have a photo of yourself that comes from a smartphone, I would suggest strongly that you go find a professional photographer to take a shot of you from the shoulders to the top of your head, perhaps with a background behind it, and that will show you in action. No more background with like a storm cloud coming in, or no more white backgrounds or any of that stuff. Dress professionally, look approachable. People want to see what you look like. Here's why this photo is so important. When they call you on the phone, by and large, they have your picture and your profile up on LinkedIn. So you get their picture and their profile up on LinkedIn, and you have a conversation as you're looking at their picture while they're looking at your picture, and you'll have a much better conversation as a result of doing that. That's the way the mind works. That's where the warmth of conversation comes from. So be sure that your photo adequately looks like you. No pictures of anybody else there, no pets, no children. Be professional. Always get a professional headshot to go with it. On the bottom, you see some other photos that show people in action. Some of them are just their face. Some of them show a little bit more than shoulders to head. Everybody's in action. And it shows a little bit more about what they do for a living, and they all have a story to tell. Your headline is the hardest section you're going to have to write on LinkedIn. Really, really hard. In my situation and everybody's situation, to collapse 10, 20, 30, 40 years of experience down to 120 characters. But folks, that's all you get. So you have to make the best of this. Write this in Word. Let Word calculate out the number of characters, including spaces. You cannot have more than 120. That's the rule. So this is hard to do, and if you're like me and you have multiple businesses, you need to really be economic with your words. This is also an important place where you need to use search engine optimization keywords. LinkedIn is, at the end of the day, just a gigantic database like Google, and if people are to find you on LinkedIn, they're going to search for you on LinkedIn from these keywords. I want you to be sure that you're using the headline as one of the 4 places where you're going to use keywords, because this is one of the places that are the most keyword sensitive on LinkedIn. Again, not title, at organization or company name. Tell us why you do what you do, not what do you do. The contact information on the right-hand side of your LinkedIn profile, please fill it out to its entirety. Be sure that you add a mobile phone number. Be sure that you add an email address. Be sure if you have a street address or a P.O. box that you want people to know about, that you've added that. They want to know where you're located. If you tweet, if you have an Instagram, whatever, if you have a Facebook company page, if you have a blog, these are places to put those URLs. Please be absolutely sure to add as much contact information as possible, because if people want to text you and you don't have your mobile phone number there, then they're not going to bother with you. And I notice a mistake here. This is an old screen. I have now my mobile phone number on my profile. At the very top, you see your profile URL. LinkedIn allows you to shorten your profile URL. So if yours right now has letters and numbers after it, that's the one they assigned you when you first signed up to LinkedIn. My suggestion is you go in and you shorten it, that you make it personal, and you can use that everywhere else. On your business cards, on your website, on your marketing materials, on your CV, on your bio, whatever it is, these are places that you want people to come back to you and find you on LinkedIn, where you're talking about yourself in the best way possible. The number of connections you have, LinkedIn stops counting them and advertising them for you at 500. It depends upon the type of person you are. I found that the magic seemed to start when I reached over 500. I would much rather you have a small quantity of quality connections than a large number of people you don't know. We can go on and on about that, but nonetheless, the better you know people, the more they're apt to refer you, and the more they're apt to know you by the company you keep. When somebody asks you, hey, do you know Marc Halpert, and they have to hem and haw and figure out where they know me, then that's just not going to happen for me, because everybody on my connection list knows me, sees me, actively nurturing my connection group. That's one of the promises I make when they connect to me as a privilege. I do the same with them. So there are some people out there who have thousands and thousands and thousands of connections. They can't possibly know everybody. One guy I know has 18,000. We always battle over that, whether he really knows his connections well enough or not. But anyway, have connections of people you know well. Don't connect to people you don't know. Vet them. Be sure you understand the value that you can add to them. Give them more than they give you. The value will come back to you in spades. Here's where you create a LinkedIn URL, personalized URL. Mine is on the top. The one I was assigned when I first joined LinkedIn a number of years ago is the one on the bottom. The important thing is that you want to look as neat and tidy and professional as you can on LinkedIn, and this is one more place to do it. Places to show it, top of my business card, every signature of my email, every single slide I produce, or every single handout or marketing material I produce. And that's important, because if somebody gets some material from you and they say, wow, this is some pretty good stuff here, you want to be sure that they can find out all the more about you by going to your LinkedIn profile. At the end of the day, LinkedIn is where you're giving your very, very best from your own words, from your own heart, from your own mind. That's where you're selling people. It's a micro website for you, the brand. Now, we talked earlier about 4 places that search engine optimization keywords need to appear on LinkedIn. We already spoke about the headline. Place number 2 is your summary, which is that number of lines underneath your headline, where it's like a short elevator pitch about what you do, why you do what you do. Your experience section, and your skills. These 4 sections, if you know what your SEO keywords are, what people would use to find you on Google, you can use those same words, what people use to find you on LinkedIn as a database. These are going to be a great place. Now, at the bottom of this slide, you see LinkedInstrategies.com has a really great podcast that you can learn about LinkedIn search engine optimization keyword methodology, so I strongly suggest you take a look at that. I've come across this image, this idea it's Japanese, called ikigai, which means a reason for being, in French, raison d'etre, in English, why you do what you do. And if you look at these 4 circles, and I mean, we can talk about this all day, like I said earlier, if you merge everything, what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, what you're good at, and then all the intersections of all of them, that nice green box in the middle is your ikigai. Your ikigai is what you want to demonstrate on LinkedIn and have people correlate as, yeah, that guy Mark, he really does live that promise. Yes, we endorse him for those skills. Yes, we recommend Mark for this aspect of what he does. This just came to me within the past month. I have really embraced this idea, and if you can ask yourself the hard questions that come from what constitutes every one of these subsections of Ikigai, you're making some real progress. So it's introspective, it's self-analysis, it's thinking at a higher level. It's really wonderful stuff. So I leave that for you to think about in your most private moment, and it's just a really wonderful way to show the things that make you tick. Once you've developed those right words, you want to accentuate, complement them with multimedia and graphics. That's where we are memorable. That's where people will follow you and understand you a lot better. I'm leading up to two places you can show graphics very well on your LinkedIn. One is your introductory section, the summary. That's that place, as I said earlier, underneath your headline. You have about 1,000 characters here, which is pretty good space to tell why you. This is your elevator pitch on a short elevator ride. You use the pronoun I and power verbs to describe why you do what you do. Has and make and did and was are weak verbs. I want you to speak in a business level, at a high business level, so that the person reading and you're empowering is understanding what you can do to help them. If you need to get power verbs, Google 185 power verbs. I think you'll find a really great website out there that will give you a lot of verbs that you might not have thought about. Aim at your audience. That was my blog post today. Audiences are constantly changing. Audiences are exceedingly attention deficit these days. Audiences are looking for certain things. Be sure that you're talking to an audience that makes sense for you. Don't ostracize or alienate an audience. Don't use a lot of jargon and a lot of words that don't make sense, especially if you're in the scientific or the technology area. People who read your profile may not be in your industry but may need your services. So be sure you know who you're speaking to. All of this is to tell why you do what you do, how you do what you do, with search engine optimization keywords in the summary intro section. Your experience is where we were talking about the past makes you who you are today. All your salient, important jobs that you've had since you finished your education is an important place to show what makes you who you are today based on what you learned there. Now, beware of using things like, I saved the company $10 million, because that has a time frame and it has a company size, and that is hard for the reader to evaluate. How important was that $10 million? It's a large number now, but still it's even more important if people understood you were in a $50 million company. That would be a tremendous home run. So use your I and power verbs. Start with the most recent, and you can track them back in history. Of course, never fabricate or exaggerate anything, because you will be found out and outed. Show your personality. Don't be afraid to use complete sentences and to use a little bit of wordplay if that's your personality. It's that why. And the brands of the companies that you've worked at, you can add those brands to the company name, as you see the brands of the companies I've been in the bottom right corner. So you want to use the most engaging way to demonstrate what it is that you want people to understand about you. I've chosen to say less about what I do, but to let some of my clients say how well I did it. That was my own decision. You can choose how you want to do it yourself. Now, that's a big wind-up for using your summary section and your experience. That's a place where in each of the summary and the experience sections, you can add graphics and video and PDFs and your resume if you're a job seeker, and all sorts of very colorful and very interactive graphics. Video is absolutely huge right now on LinkedIn. It's easy to either upload it from your hard drive or to link it to someplace else on the web, but please be sure you have the right and the legal right to do that, and that it reflects as well as you can on you. LinkedIn is very friendly with YouTube, so if you've got a YouTube channel, I would strongly suggest you develop a channel for yourself on LinkedIn and continuously tie your latest addition to your channel on YouTube to your LinkedIn profile. few of the videos that I've done for various reasons. Some are advertisements, some are me speaking, some are me being interviewed. The one on the bottom was the Indian television where I spoke to God knows how many millions of people. These are videos that I've made that I show on my LinkedIn profile. In each one of them at the bottom, there's a description of what the person is about to see and hear. There's also something now called native video, the term aside. It's known as native video in the AV industry. It's raw, fast, immediate impression video. You can take that on your iPhone or your Android device on your LinkedIn app, and you can quickly do a video on the moment, at the spot, and make it fast, make it interesting, make it compelling. These are things that get a lot of attention because, oddly, not a lot of people use it. As far as I'm concerned, the one on the bottom got hundreds. The one on above that one got almost 1,000 views. It's been really quite interesting to see that people are not using it, but they are fascinated with native video. So use native video, but use it effectively. Don't go nuts with video because then you get boring. You never want to be boring. Use the right tool for the right purpose and use that discretion, and I think you'll do just fine. Recommendations, as I said earlier, recommendations is where outside other people say how well you do, why you say you do what you do. And I'll repeat that because it's a little complicated. Outsiders telling how well you do, why you say you do what you do. And don't just make recommendations of Mark's a great guy, Mark did a really good job, Mark's this, Mark's that. Ask the recommender to recommend you for a specific aspect, a facet of what you do, and manage the recommender. So send the recommendation request to them and say, I'd really love it if you would comment about the time when I or we experienced something, or the time that I really helped your organization out and how I did it. And you can even begin to give them ideas about what you would like them to recommend you for, and then almost 99 out of 100 times you're going to get a great recommendation back. That will track to your experience section because you asked them to recommend you for the time you served as an employee of or in your experience as. But the recommendation you get back, you can even send to them, say, I really appreciate what you did. There's a typo on line 3 or there's a factual problem. Could you just amend that a little bit? And if they're willing to recommend you, then they're willing to make that recommendation look best for you as well as for them. We always want to have honorable, great recommendations, honest recommendations. And the question I always get is, how many recommendations do I need? Well, we'll go back to where I was saying earlier. You want to have connections from people you know and you know well and have seen you work and have experienced your magic. And that may be a smaller number than the people you've collected as you've exchanged business cards, because not everybody should be a connection. It's a privilege to connect to you. Take that number of connections that you have and multiply that times 2%. And that's my rule. About 2% times the number of connections you have are the people who absolutely stark raving love you enough to commit in writing, in the time that it takes to write a recommendation, how well you do, why you say you do what you do. The other 98% like you, but the 2% really are impressed with what you've done. So please be sure to, 2% is a plus or minus, a little less than 2%, 3% maybe on the outside, going to 5%. I've seen some people 10%, way overboard. So I really want to suggest to you 2% seems to work. Ask for recommendations and give recommendations. What a wonderful thing. I gave one this morning to somebody who really impressed me. He didn't ask for it. That's a way I make my brand impressionable on people that I recommend, because it's the way I like to operate, the way I want to be thought about. And that's important. You might recognize in this picture Seth Godin. Seth Godin writes a wonderful blog, and if you don't already subscribe to it, you should, about business and marketing, and he's a guru in marketing. He wrote quite a while ago about skills. What are skills? Skills are abused on LinkedIn. People show things that are not really skills. He helps define it. If you can learn to be better at something, then it's a skill. Then you are demonstrating that skill. If it's a skill, it's yours to perfect if you want it. So as you're going through your day, have a notepad off to the side of your phone, and as you're demonstrating that skill on the phone, in an email, as you're doing your work, jot that skill down. Keep refining those skills to skills that people would want to hire you for. And remember what we said, skills are a section of LinkedIn that are search engine sensitive. So use the right skill words. To that point, you want to use the right skills, and you want to be endorsed for those skills. At the bottom of your skill section, there's a little box on the bottom. It says Adjust Endorsement Settings. You want to set that little box to yes, no, no. Yes, you want to be endorsed. No, you do not want your connections to be prodded by LinkedIn to endorse you, because that's where you get cheap endorsements from people that don't really know your skills. Some people think that if LinkedIn suggests I should endorse you, I'm going to endorse you for every single skill you have, and that's where people get kind of cheap skills endorsed on them. And also, you don't need to be recommended who to endorse. You know instinctively who you want to endorse and for what skills you want to endorse. So this is a way to keep the amount of garbage or cheap endorsements for skills down to a bare minimum. Be sure you look at all the skills you're listing in these little gray boxes you're seeing here. Something like marketing is not a skill. Finance is not a skill. Management is not a skill. Those are subjects. Big books on your shelf. Go deeper. Think harder. Be more introspective. Financial analysis and management is a better term than finance as a skill, or better than management as a skill. I want you to use the right skills. And for each skill, each person will be showing or be shown how many people have endorsed you for those skills. Who are the people that have endorsed you? Some specific names might be shown. There's an algorithm there. I'm not sure how they do that, but they do that. And I will tell you that there's a small change coming to your LinkedIn profile coming up very soon if you don't already have it. I don't. You might, where LinkedIn is going to automatically segregate your skills into sections of skills. So if you see that all of a sudden, then other things have changed as well. I probably should have said this earlier. Your headshot is going to move over to the left. Your headline is going to move over to the left. And the first, what is now 2 lines of your summary is now going to be the first 3 lines of your summary. So take advantage of all these changes. Be sure that everything looks good once LinkedIn makes those changes for you. You have no say in that at all, unfortunately. Be sure that the people who actually endorse you for your skills actually know your skills. If they don't know your skills, click on the skill. You'll see the list of all the people who know your skills. Use that rocker switch, that blue switch on the right-hand side, and switch it from yes, which is on the right side, to no, and it will go to gray. They will no longer be seen as endorsing you for those skills. They will not get a notification that you've taken them out as an endorser, but be true to yourself and to them that they actually know your skill, even though they might have been a little bit too exuberant. This is part of managing your brand. And if any of you are attorneys or financial professionals, this is absolutely essential in your field right now. If you have certifications, show them. If you have taking courses, teach a course. Patents, have received peer-based honors, speak a foreign language in your business, have published. These are places to differentiate yourself. Please don't forget to add them as you gain them. A lot of people tend to leave these sections alone, and they sort of get stale. So every time you have something new to add, be sure to add them not only to your updates on LinkedIn to let your audience know you've received that honor or you've been published, but let people know for perpetuity on your LinkedIn profile. Memorialize it. Show people that this is something you do. People are very interested in your credentialing. So if you worked for it, show it. Be absolutely sure to keep updating these. If you do volunteer nonprofit work, or you do pro bono work, or you're on a board or any sort of work that you do for a nonprofit, this is a place to show it. A lot of people on the board or the chairman of the board tend to put that in their experience. I tend to think that that's a bad place to put it because it interrupts the flow of your career positioning as people read through your experience. So I think it works better on your volunteer section. You see on the bottom, I'm a mentor in SCORE. So, I mean, I do these things because I believe them, and it further accentuates my brand. Brand yourself by where you went to school. Even if you didn't complete that degree, education and the experience you shared with other people, your fellow alums, is a way to generate more attention to your brand and to generate more business because you are a known commodity. People know and respect where you came from. It's part of those credentials that you want to be absolutely sure. And please show the years you attended. Forget and leave the ageism fear alone. They're going to get a very good idea how old you are by the amount of experience you have. So ageism exists. I do not argue with that. While it is illegal or it is immoral, it is something that you should show in your education so that other fellow alums can find you, so that you appear in the right graduating class on the alumni pages of those universities. Groups is a thing on LinkedIn that is in the midst of some big changes. I don't know exactly what those changes are. I will know better in about a month. There's a considerable amount of thought being put into why groups on LinkedIn have begun to waste away, flow away. People are less interested in groups. Good groups still exist. Find the right good groups to participate in. Groups are silos of individuals who have the same interests that you have, and recognize you are not the only expert in your field. There are people that you can tap into willingly for free and get amazing experience and expertise back at you. Or you can give them experience and expertise for people who ask. And you can meet some absolutely incredible people in your field through groups you might not normally have the opportunity to meet. So find the right groups to join and participate in them. There are many different groups out there. There are many ways to be a part and participating part of a group. No one likes wallflowers. If you're in a group for the sake of being in a group, you're wasting your own time. My suspicion is that you need to evaluate the amount of time that you spend on your group. Some groups will command more time as the topic is hot. Other groups will just be permanently boring. Those are good times to leave that group. Choose the frequency of group contact. Now, you can get group contact emailed to you as they occur, but that's a lot of email, especially if you're in a lot of groups or there's some hot topics going in your groups. So you might want to have a daily digest of the activity in a group. Comes to you towards the end of the day, so you can get active in the conversation while it's still warm. Or you can go to weekly digest for groups that you might find less interesting right now or less important to you right now. But eventually, by the time you react to something that's a week old, it's really, really old news. So it's a great communication tool inward and outwardly. Just be sure that you are communicating to a group of people who appreciate what you're asking or answering. A really great way to gain information, the pulse of what's going on in your industry or your interest group, is to ask an open question. These are two really good open questions just from many, many that I see. What would you like to know? Has anybody had experience in? I'm seeking success stories in this situation that I have that I'm trying to achieve. What are you thinking? What's the pulse of the group? So please be sure that your questions to the group are the ones that the group is going to be able to answer for you really effectively. Another way to be a thought leader and a brand maven, shall we say, is for you to add material to your groups or to your connections or to LinkedIn as a whole. And there are many ways to do this. You can write an article, and I'll show you that in a minute. You can add an image or a picture with a comment that you want to make to it. So you come across a really great business image or an infographic, and you want to tell people, hey, I thought this was really interesting, and I want you to take notice of this aspect. Then call their attention to something. An article you've read that somebody else wrote. Add that article in there and tell people why this article is important. Or ask people, do you agree? Ask for a call for action. Or add a video here. Really great place to do it. You can choose where it gets distributed, just to your connections, to all of LinkedIn, or to all of LinkedIn and everybody you're connected to in Twitter. So a lot of opportunity for you to be a brand leader in more than one platform. That's another good place for you to brand yourself as a unique giver. These are just some of the statuses that people have told me. It's just a screenshot. Tell us what you're doing. I did yesterday afternoon. I found out 150 people were attending this webinar. Good news is what I wrote yesterday. 150 people attending my webinar tomorrow. Here's where you can register. Get in on the good stuff. Where are you on a project? Just sent my book to the editor, anticipating good results. What's important to share about your professional life? Because people identify you by what you do. What have you read and what's worthy of comment? You can even professionally differ with an article that you've read. But so long as it makes and reflects well on you and your work and your critical mind, your critical thinking, that's what's important. A lot of people say, who cares? We care. Because we root you on silently sometimes, verbally other times. We want you to know, we want to know what you're up to. LinkedIn posts is something I mentioned just a moment ago. These are long-form essays that you can write to the entire audience of LinkedIn. This is one that I wrote, Actions Can Speak Much Louder Than Words, on LinkedIn. It got a lot of attention, and I'm very pleased it did, mostly because of what it talks about, and that is you can write all you'd want and like everything on LinkedIn and share everything on LinkedIn, but it's not enough of a gesture to just like something. You have to share it and tell people why what you're reading is important, recommending people, being sure other people see the value of what this other person is providing you. So use gestures and goodwill to add to the persona and the brand of you. I show this essay because I really like this video. Look at this video, folks. Look at the gestures and the adoration that the German boys soccer team shows to the Japanese boys soccer team, and see how language is not required to make people understand the value and the good nature and the goodwill and sportsmanship you have. I absolutely insist that you watch this video. It's going to mean something to you because it's been something that I've really enjoyed. I show this to you to brand myself to you and hope that you will also gesture to other people. Brand your company too. Brand yourself on your personal profile and your public profile, but brand yourself on your company profile. I am my own company. I have found a way to speak about myself on my personal profile that is different than my company profile, because there's two parts to me. There's the personal side and then the corporate personal side of what I do in my company. I want you to use the differentiators there. Share content. Be real. Be interesting. Because not everybody's going to find you for your personal profile. They might find your company profile first. So know that it's a two-way door. People may find you in either way. Refer back and forth from one profile to another. This is my company profile. It's one of my 3 company profiles. You see I've updated with that Ikigai graphic. People are engaging. I talk about us as me and my company. I talk about myself in I on my company, on my personal profile page. So us in my company profile page, I and me in my personal profile page, even though there's only one of me in my company. Engage with people. These are the people you want to find you and work with you. Search for those people. Engage them to want to know more about you as you ask about them first. When you get them in their comfort zone about talking about you, twist the conversation to how you can help them, which then will bring people to how they can use your expertise, products, or services. Ask them to join your network if you've worked with them, if you know them. Be sure you know people that you connect with on your LinkedIn profile. That is a privilege, and it is not a privilege to be taken lightly, because you can sever people from your LinkedIn profile who did not pan out as you expected. There's nothing wrong with that. It's something that some people do quarterly. I tend to do that semi-annually or on the fly as I see people come across my profile that don't make sense for me to be sharing with anymore, not because I'm being mean, but because I didn't get back 49% of the 51% I'm giving them. You can take people out of your connection list without them knowing it. They will not get a message saying Marc Halpert is disconnected from so-and-so. But that is a good thing to do. So you keep that list cold and tight and smart and active. Always be professional. Never stalk anybody or badger anybody. Hey, how come you haven't connected to me? Hey, I have so much good stuff for you. What's wrong with you? I've seen this before. Why won't you connect with me? That's pretty sad. You don't want to be appreciated as being a sad, lonely person, and there's plenty of them out there. You can search on LinkedIn by any of a number of different granular search terms. It's really quite robust. So be out there, find common threads to partner upon. Be absolutely sure that you're not perceived as being a promiscuous linker. They get in trouble, and you don't want to get in trouble. Seek connections. Look at other people's connections. See how you can be introduced to them through them. And one really important thing, and this is huge, and some of you are going to do this today, you're going to ask me to connect with you. And all you're going to do is send me the boilerplate default, I'd like to connect with you in LinkedIn. And what's going to happen? I'm not going to respond because you haven't told me. It's like picking up the phone and calling somebody, and I say hello, and you just say, I'd like to talk to you. That's not what this is about. We don't do business that way. You need to make an impression. So the best way to make an impression is to do it the right way. So after I hung up with this guy, Noah, send him a LinkedIn connection request. Great conversation today. I hope we have more. Please join my amazing group of professional connections on LinkedIn. Anastasia, another conversation. I enjoyed meeting you last night at Casual Cocktails. Please join my amazing group of professional connections on LinkedIn. You hear a pattern? I'm engaging people with their name, personalized to where I met them, when I got to what we left off on, and how I can proceed going forward. Please be absolutely sure you have checked your grammar and your spelling. There is nothing uglier than bad grammar or bad spelling or a typo on your LinkedIn profile. People will just drop the interest in you, especially if you're in a profession that is known to be detail-oriented. You lawyers, you accountants out there, anything that's precision-based, they take off. You'll never get them back again. So look at these pencils. These pencils are the most common grammar errors I see, and these are the ones my coaching clients and I wrestle with all the time. I try to be as nice about it when they use the wrong term. So a little wrap-up here. Be smartly presented. The very best you've got. Not your profile, not your resume on electrons, not factoids, full sentences, I, power verb, where I came from, makes me who I am today, where I'm going in my future, why I do what I do, how I can help you. Use keywords. You'll be searchable. Use multimedia and graphics to accentuate, add value, be memorable to the things you have talked about in writing. Get out there, meet great people. They're all over the world. They want to engage with you, but they need to be compelled to want to know more about you as you go along. Now, you might feel like this guy. I know I sit through lots of webinars go, oh, God, what am I going to do first? Start at the top and nip away bit by bit by bit on LinkedIn. Do it slowly. Have a plan. Have an idea of what you want to convey. Say the same thing over and over in LinkedIn in different words in each section, and your brand will come through. The LinkedIn profile is not stuck. It's like you can change it anytime in real time. So realize that as you change and as you morph and as you mature and as you go into new ideas and new things, you can always make changes on LinkedIn. Nothing is written in stone. Be awesome. Average doesn't win. Be amazing. Be absolutely incredible in everything you do. Be a brand. I'm a brand. I'm an author of 2 books. I help people get unstuck. People are stuck in many different ways. My job is to help them understand how to be unstuck and stay unstuck. It's your LinkedIn profile that I'm talking about today. You need incremental business success every step of the way. LinkedIn is your best power tool in your marketing toolbox that I've ever come across if you know how to use it right to accentuate your brand. So I think I just about did it.
You did. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mark. And we'll now turn it over to open it up for some questions. And just as a reminder, if you haven't already done so, you can submit your questions in the lower left-hand side of your screen in the chat feature. And I'll maybe start with an initial question from Val Walker, who's just starting a new business, and her experience is very limited, and so she's just wondering what she could put in the experience session when you have very limited experience and you're just starting a new business, if you have any thoughts there.
I was there 17 years ago. I didn't have a lot of experience in what I did. While there wasn't a LinkedIn then, if there was, I would have done this. So, Val, no matter where you came from, what industry you were in, where you worked, you developed skills and an ethos and the right things to do for the people at the right time. Talk about what you did in those past jobs in terms of the things you can bring them today. So you do not have to talk about the accomplishments in your past jobs in terms of I helped this number of people or save that dollar amount. Less quantity. Talk about quality. Talk about the general soft skills you bring to the table that you learned where you are today that you will bring to your new clientele. They will understand that, and you demonstrate that and live to that requirement of the things you bring to the table, and you'll be able to write your profile a lot better a year from now, 2 years from now, as you develop that layers of the onion that I was talking about earlier.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Thanks for that, Mark. There's another one from Loretta J. Asking if you could talk a little bit more about the experience section and the depth of information that should be included. Should we list our skills, accomplishments, the why? It may not capture all that we do.
People have a limited capacity to read and pay attention. The attention spans are remarkably small. If you write in prose using I and pronoun, and in the experience section, it's probably going to be in past tense, where you have been, also where you are right now in present tense, you can say a lot without going into a lot of detail. You can show in the right quality of language the things you think about. So be introspective, be less factoid related. Talk about the things you bring to the table as if you're talking to them directly. That's the best way to impress on somebody and give them a call to action in that experience section. If you'd like to know more, contact me. There's no reason why you can't do that. Happy to discuss this with you at length. And they will look for your contact information and either text you, phone you, email you, whatever. So you have lots of opportunity to say the right things in the right places on LinkedIn without overemphasizing the details. People get muddied down in detail.
That's great. Another question from John Dretler. Could you please explain the difference and when to use posts versus comments versus share?
Great question. Posts are long-form essays. We're talking about 300 to 500 words, so that's an essay. That's something you're thinking about. That's something that you see in your business life that you want to express or you want to recommend for improvement. Something that everybody on LinkedIn can relate to. That's a great way to do a post. That's like that post I have of this boys soccer team. Use gestures instead of just words. When you share something, it's something somebody else has written, like an article you read that you want to share with other people so that they may not read the New York Times, but you read that in the New York Times today. You want to share that to your colleagues in Italy. Or once I shared an article from the New York Times and a guy in Iran commented back on me because he doesn't get the New York Times there. So those are ways to share. Updates are, this is what I'm doing, this is what you need to know, brings attention to you as a professional, and by the way you say it, it provides you the ability to be understood as the professional you are, the quality you bring. So other people say, hey, he's speaking at a webinar. Maybe I want to hire him to come to my company. Or, hey, he's writing a book. He's finishing up the book. Hey, I want to be on the short list when that book comes out. So use it to market yourself. Use it to brand yourself as somebody adding value in the right place within those various places on LinkedIn.
That's great. Very helpful. Another question here from Kathleen Blood. Where would you put things like major industry panels that you've been on? Under projects?
Projects are things that you're engaged in right now and that you are working on a long-term basis. If you've been on a panel, you can put that in your publication section, and in the publication itself say, I served on a panel in which we presented on, and the URL for the slide deck that we showed was this, or the video for the presentation was that. You can put that into your publications. ultimately that's the best place that it goes. That's a good question.
That's great. Another one here from Peter Korzanek. Is it possible to send an article I've written directly to my connections? I'm worried that they miss it otherwise.
Absolutely. On your home page, you go to your updates and you say, "Hey, connections," or whatever you want to say. "I've just published this article. Have a look at it. Drop in the URL. Add a call to action. I would love your comments. Or if anybody would like to pass that along, please help me do this because I think it has something valuable for everybody else." That will be shown to your connections. A week later, you can come back and say, "I had an unbelievably great response to my article. I thought I'd share it again in case you didn't see it," and send it out again. And you might want to do it a month later and say, "By now we've had 500 opens of this article. I'm shooting for 750. Help me reach my goal." Drop the article URL in there again, and maybe you'll get your goal. So that's another, it's just all this various viral type of circular way of using marketing and being the guru in your industry to brand yourself. And so people say, I read an article that guy wrote. That was really, really good. I'm going to pass that along to my other connections. And then other people see it. And other people see it from their connections. And around the world it goes.
Perfect. Another one here from Laura Casal. What's the best way to make updates to your LinkedIn profile when you're trying to transition careers while still working?
Ooh, meaty question. We have an hour. We can talk about this. Less than 5 minutes, so I better talk fast. So first of all, when you're making changes to your LinkedIn profile, there's a setting in your settings and section of LinkedIn to make it so that so your connections do not get a notification you made a change to that profile section. Go in your settings and find that. They will not get a message saying Mark has changed his experience, Mark has changed his skills, Mark has changed this, Mark has changed that, because after a while people just are tired of seeing that you've made all those changes. That's the first thing. The second thing is to really write your LinkedIn profile on Word and get it polished up. The way I tell my clients to do each section of their LinkedIn profile is to write on a blank screen, write that section, and save it. And the next day when you're fresh again, or whenever you're fresh again, write it on a blank screen and save it. And after about 5 saves, print them all out. And then take a yellow highlighter, old school, but it works, and highlight the best in each of those saves. And then take all the yellow highlights and shuffle the cards together. And do that for each section. Figure out what your themes are. Figure out what you're trying to reinforce. Figure out how you're going to say it in each section on LinkedIn. And say it in multiple places in different ways. And by the time the attention deficit reader has gotten as far down in your LinkedIn profile as they absolutely will get, they've seen it in 1, 2, 3, maybe more different ways. They've got the impression. They know what you're talking about. It takes planning. It takes thought. It takes sketching it out. But that's the way good things come. So you got to plan it out.
Great. We have a question here on privacy issues with Facebook and Cambridge Analytics having raised everyone's privacy antennas. What can you tell us about the LinkedIn / HiQ court case and what you consider to be a safe amount of personal information to put online?
That's a question that I get a lot these days. LinkedIn allows you to decide exactly what you want your public profile to say. I've chosen to put everything out there. That's my choice. I teach it, therefore I believe I should show it all. But if you go to edit your public profile, you can cherry pick by the little check boxes what you want and don't want the public profile to show. When you connect to somebody, you have given them the privilege to see everything you show on your LinkedIn profile. So you are vetting those connections, you are trusting those connections, and the moment they betray that trust, you delete those connections. I'm not going to go into the legal ramifications of this because that is not my area of expertise. I have yet to see anything on my own profile that I did not put there and allow there. So I think different than Facebook, LinkedIn has a little bit better thought process going here. If you want to read the privacy statement that LinkedIn has, be my guest. It's available to you. Go down to the very bottom of any LinkedIn screen, and I think you can find it in the About section and read it. God bless you if you want to read it. It's not fun reading, but that's where you'll get your satisfaction if that's a big concern to you. Be sure you put everything on your LinkedIn profile that is professionally accurate, that is professionally reasonable, and then cherry pick back what the public can see. Those people you've connected to, they see more than what the public can see by virtue of the privilege you share as a connection. Best way I can answer that question without going into another hour.
And which we don't have. And unfortunately, we are out of time, and that's all the time that we have remaining for questions. And just as a reminder, there is a recording of the webinar, and the materials will be available the next day or two on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. I know some of you have also asked for copies of the materials. I'm sure if you send your a request to Mark's email, he may give them to you directly, or you can get them online. Our next webinar will be on Tuesday, May 1st, and the topic is how the new tax laws will impact your individual and business taxes, with Scott Herkus presenting. And so on behalf of SCORE, I'd like to thank you all for attending today's live webinar, and I would would really appreciate if you could fill out the evaluations that have been sent to you after the email. They really help us with future sessions. So in closing, a big thanks for Mark for presenting today, and have a nice day, everyone.
Thank you. Please stand by.